Welcome to Scenario, your podcast for deep dives, analysis, and reviews. Today, we're diving into an enlightening video by Alan Watkins from TEDx Oxford titled, Why You Feel What You Feel. You pointed us toward this talk, intrigued by the idea of getting a better handle on our emotions. Our mission today is basically to unpack the wisdom in this presentation, aiming to give you a clear perspective on your own emotional landscape. So let's get started. Watkins kicks off by sharing his own journey, a path marked by some pretty sharp observations about human nature. Think about it from his childhood insights through intense experiences as a doctor and researcher in immunology and neuroscience, right up to his current work with top leaders and athletes. Quite a range of experiences, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. What immediately grabs you is how Watkins has navigated such, diverse human contexts.
Yeah.
From the most intimate biological reactions to, complex group dynamics. And all this broad experience led him to a really fundamental question. What's the single most important thing we can teach others? It's a powerful question, isn't it? Probably one we all ask ourselves at some point.
Exactly. And his answer really revolves around self-awareness, but not just as some kind of static snapshot. Watkins describes it more as an evolution, happening across 4 distinct levels. The first is physical awareness, emerging around the first year of life. That's the moment a baby recognizes itself as a separate entity, like he says, looking in the mirror and realizing, that's me. A crucial moment, right?
Definitely. It's recognizing your own physical individuality. But Watkins points out that this physical awareness comes before understanding our emotional landscape. And that's where the infamous terrible twos come in, that phase where a child starts to sense that their emotions are distinct from others. Think about how huge that discovery is.
Right. Watkins uses a really vivid example. A toddler in the supermarket who's hungry assumes everyone must be hungry. They just can't understand why their parent isn't crying desperately for food, too. It's pure emotional egocentrism at that stage. So, yeah, emotional awareness marks a really important boundary.
Precisely. Then, between ages 3 and 6, the conceptual self develops, which is closely tied to language emerging. The child starts labeling the world mommy, daddy, ball, and through this process, a basic sense of identity forms, what we call consciousness. Every new word is like a fundamental piece in building that.
And language, as Watkins emphasizes, is really key here. Every learned term is a brick, building this conceptual awareness. Then, between 6 and 9, we move to concrete consciousness, where we learn the rules governing these concepts. It's the stage where a child figures out why a cat is a cat and not a dog, internalizing the laws of the world around them. Does the cat say woof woof? Watkins asks, illustrating how kids at this age start understanding and, playing with the rules. But here's a thought-provoking point. According to Watkins, most of us actually stay anchored at this level of concrete consciousness for our entire lives. What do you make of that?
It's a strong claim, but if you think about it, how many people follow set patterns and rules from family, society, work, without ever really questioning their meaning or if they're still valid for their own lives? Watkins almost calls them 9-year-olds trapped in adult bodies. The insight here isn't just that we learn rules, but that many of us operate on autopilot, never asking why those rules exist, potentially limiting our own growth.
Absolutely. You see it in some organizational rigidities, that we've always done it this way attitude that often stifles innovation. But Watkins notes it's often only a crisis that shakes us out of this uncritical adherence to rules, the so-called disease of meaning, which often hits around midlife. You realize you've checked all the boxes, degree, good job, family, yet there's this sense of emptiness, a lack of fulfillment. It's a moment of deep dissatisfaction.
And faced with this crisis, Watkins identifies 2 very common avoidance strategies. The first is anesthesia. Alcohol, drugs, really anything that can numb awareness and make you forget, at least temporarily, this inner void. Think how often, when facing discomfort, people reach for an external fix to soothe an internal unease.
And then there's distraction, which can take all sorts of forms. Obsession with exercise, compulsive sex, accumulating material possessions, workaholism. The goal is basically to keep yourself so busy you don't have time to face the uncomfortable questions. Watkins stresses a crucial point here. These strategies don't solve the root problem because they seek external solutions for an internal issue. You can't fill a meaning vacuum with a new purchase or another hour at work.
Exactly. The real breakthrough, according to Watkins, lies in turning our gaze inward towards our own emotional experience. And here Watkins kind of demolishes a common idea, especially in Western culture, this tendency to ignore or run away from our emotions.
Right.
But what exactly are emotions for Watkins?
Emotions, as Watkins defines them, are simply energy in motion, complex biological signals that manifest physically. Faster heartbeat, sweaty palms, muscle tension. They're constantly present, like every single moment. Think about times you felt a strong emotion. Your body reacts, doesn't it?
Of course. Feelings, on the other hand, are the mental awareness of this energy. We can experience emotions without being fully conscious of them. It's like having the raw biological data, the racing heart, without the brain immediately interpreting its meaning. And this leads to another fundamental idea from Watkins. We often blame others for causing our emotions. You made me angry, we say.
But Watkins radically challenges this view. Nobody can make us feel an emotion. We are the ones generating our emotional responses to external events. The example he gives is illuminating. When someone frustrates us, they don't chemically inject frustration into us. We create that reaction within ourselves. Accepting this responsibility is a crucial step.
It's a radical shift in perspective. It moves us, as Watkins puts it, from being a helpless victim of external circumstances to being the active owner of our emotions. He calls it the most significant transition we can make towards greater self-awareness.
And to help us on this path of awareness, Watkins introduces the concept of a vast universe of emotions. Instead of the maybe 10, 12 basic emotions most of us recognize, he suggests there are around 34,000. That's an astonishing number, highlighting how much richer and more nuanced our emotional landscape is than we often think.
Exactly. And to help navigate this vast inner territory, Watkins even developed an app. The idea is to map these emotions on a two-dimensional grid, considering parameters like energy level, high or low, and valence, positive or negative. Just imagine how a tool like that could help us define what we're feeling with much greater precision.
Yeah, the app, which Watkins previews, aims to help us identify our emotional location at any given moment. What planet are you on, he asks. And it encourages exploring a wider emotional repertoire, moving beyond the usual labels like happy, sad, or angry. Not only that, it even suggests possible antidotes, other emotions that might counterbalance the ones we're experiencing. Plus, it lets you track your emotional shifts over time, like a real journal of your inner world. There's even an option to share these experiences if you want. So like high energy and positive might be excited, while low energy and negative could be sad. Right? Is that the kind of spectrum we're talking about?
Precisely that.
Yeah.
And once you develop this ability for emotional navigation, the next step is mastery. This involves objectifying the emotion, analyzing it by detaching from the purely subjective experience. For example, when facing anger, asking yourself, what is anger, really? What are its physical and mental components?
And the ultimate goal is learning to stay in constructive emotional states and not get overwhelmed by negative ones. Watkins makes the bold claim that misery is optional if we learn to control our emotions. That's a powerful statement that really pushes us to think about our own inner power.
Yeah, and emotional control, Watkins emphasizes, has a profound impact on our physical and mental health, our performance in every area, our general well-being, sense of fulfillment, the decisions we make, and our motivation. Without this ability, life effectively becomes a lottery, completely at the mercy of our automatic reactions.
Right. So the key questions Watkins leaves us with are, what planet am I on right now? And what planet would I like to be on? And he actively encourages us to work on bridging that gap, to actually reach the emotional state we desire.
His vision is really for a future where emotions are no longer obstacles or limits, but something we can consciously manage, so we can face life's challenges with greater calm, resilience, and self-confidence. Imagine a world where we aren't paralyzed by the fear of tackling an interview, speaking in public, or handling conflict.
This deep dive into Alan Watkins' thinking has certainly given us a fascinating perspective, really rich with insights about our inner world. We hope this exploration has provided you with some useful tools to start mapping your own personal emotional universe. We invite you to seriously reflect on Watkins' question, what planet are you on right now? And if you're not satisfied with the answer, what small but significant first steps could you take to explore new emotional horizons? Keep following us for more deep dives into topics that stimulate reflection and personal growth.